The Regulation F ladder has been live for a couple of days now, and there's a cool strategy that is starting to pick up in popularity surrounding Whimsicott and the move beat up, so I want to talk about it. Now look, Whimsicott and the move beat up have been, a bit of a combo for quite a while now, obviously going back to the black and white days, where Whimsicott was paired up with its good friend Terrakion, right? Now, before we quickly jump into that, I do just want to add to this as well. While Whimsicott is the key piece of this strategy with the move beat up, there is always another option as well, which is Mousehold. Now, Mousehold is not quite as fast as Whimsicott, but it does obviously have Friend Guard, which gives you kind of different niches in a strategy like this. But basically, the reason I'm going to be bringing up this whole beat up strategy is because I think there's actually a few new pieces that have been added, in Regulation F in particular, or, in the Indigo Disc DLC, that really actually, kind of buff up these Whimsicott beat up strats, and you can really start centering up, your whole team around it, right? So for the purpose of this, I will mainly be focusing on Whimsicott, but I will touch on Mousehold where I can, basically kind of just giving that little bit of extra information as to how, Mousehold would kind of pair up with the strategy, right? So first things first is Whimsicott, yeah? So this mon has beat up and it has Tailwind, which is why I do think it is the premier, option here, obviously when, doing these justified strats, right? Or these beat up strats, I should say, sorry. Because there are, 3 other mons that we're going to touch on that don't have justified, right? So basically, I guess the question is, why is Whimsicott, so good with Terrakion? For anyone who doesn't know how it kind of works, right? So this, again, goes back all the way to the black and white days where Whimsicott and Terrakion would be paired up because of Justified plus Beat Up. Basically, Justified is, if you get hit by a Dark type move, you get +1 in your attack. And Beat Up, if you use it turn 1 when everything's alive, you'll give your Terrakion +4. So even if they bring something, with Intimidate into your Terrakion, you're just going to still be +3 anyway. And if they don't, you're +4, right? Now, again, this mod, it's really strong. Yeah, if you have a look at its attack stat, it's 129, right? So even if you just go up to, the 144, which is very common, you run, max speed Jolly here, this mod is incredibly fast. And then on top of that, it hits really, really hard, right? If you look at that 180, times 4, all of a sudden you're going to have, 720 attack, which is very, very absurd, right? It's a very, very high attack stat. And when you're spamming things like Stab Rock Slide, this one does a lot of damage. It also has options as well, like Close Combat, Sacred Sword, if you don't want to, get the defense drops. Protect obviously is an absolute must on this, but this one also does have a lot of good coverage as well, things like Iron Head as well, which is obviously very, very good into things like Flutter Mane, right? And the other thing too is I do think mods like Terrakion are going to start changing the way I think Flutter Mane's kind of spread, because I think in Regulation E in particular, the really bulky Flutter Manes were only running about 174-ish speed, and all of a sudden I just don't think that's going to be enough in a metagame where things like Terrakion and even like Iron Boulder as well are kind of running around, because I think an Adamant Iron Boulder hits around that 178 mark, I think, off the top of my head, and there's going to be a bunch of mons like Terrakion running around that are going to be near that max speed tier. But anyway, we'll quickly talk about some of the other mons here before we kind of really just touch on how the whole kind of team functions together, right? So the next one we're going to touch on here is actually another, kind of old mon, not really old, but it's kind of, been paired up with, Mousehold in similar situations, and that is the Weak Armor Armarouge. Now, the reason this mon in particular is really good, I think, with Mousehold, with Whimsicott in particular, is because you have a couple options, right? So one, Armarouge absolutely loves having Tailwind, especially if you're playing something like Weak Armor, right? Giving yourself basically the extra, extra speed is, very, very clutch in certain situations. Obviously as well, you'll be pairing this with Indeedee Female. I think that, pretty self-explanatory. That gives you the Psychic Terrain for your E-Force. It also means you can't, get picked off once, you've got that maxed out speed, which is also obviously very, very important. But I don't actually have enough space here for all the ones I'm going to talk about, so I'll delete that for now. So basically, the way Armarouge kind of wants to play with these guys as well, right, is you want to have Terra Grass. Now, there's 2 main reasons for that, right? One is because if, you're not threatened turn 1, you've always got the option of just going, for the beat up, giving you max speed, and then basically just firing off a, a +2, Heat Wave or like Expanding Force, whatever it is you want to go for, right? But the other cool thing too is if you feel like your Armarouge is kind of threatened on turn 1, and again, Whimsicott, I don't think I actually said at the start, 116 speed is really, really good. So if you like Timid max speed with like 0 attack, you're doing absolutely no damage here. But you're also super duper fast, so you just get a free U-turn, right? So if you go Terra Grass, you can U-turn off your friend here, and then basically with the U-turn, you can activate the Weakness Policy, also activate the Weak Armor. So all of a sudden, if you're running, say for example, Timid, you're 127, which sorry, if you're Modest. If you're Timid, you're 139, which I do think you want to run, because that does help you, outspeed things like Aleki, for example. I do think that is actually, no, am I wrong? Does that outspeed Aleki? I think it does, right? Aleki's 277. Let me double check that. Regieleki, I don't want to talk out my ass here, because that would have you hit 278. Regieleki, goddamn. I'm pretty sure this hits 277, right? Yeah, 277, yeah. So if you go Timid max speed, you basically outspeed everything in the format at +2. Which obviously, again, you'd be like, oh, Scott, but like Regieleki, it's going to outspeed the Whimsicott. Whimsicott could just Tailwind you for you, right? And then you just go for something like Heat Wave, and that, that situation can also obviously then as well resist the electric move with Terra Grass, right? That's a very, very niche situation though. So yeah, basically the situation is one, you just go beat up, get yourself to like +4 speed. So actually you would max out your speed, sorry, because you get +2 for that. Yeah, you get yourself to +6, and then fire off like a heat wave expanding force or whatever. This mod also really likes endure as well. Because the other like situation that you can kind of, oh my god, endure, there we go. Because what you can also do in a situation like this, right, is, if you feel like you're pretty threatened or the opponent has like priority moves, you go for the endure, which is a priority move. Basically means you're always going to live on 1 HP. You go to the Terra Grass, activate your weakness policy, also activate, the weak armor, and then get yourself into your Indeedee, which obviously then gives you, obviously redirection, helping hand, and then, just protection from priority moves in general. So that is like really, really cool. And another thing too, as to why I think this is actually like a core you can kind of build around, right, is 45 Mice, for anyone who doesn't know, very good player, actually put out a tweet, earlier today, basically saying like that he thinks the issue with Psy Spam didn't get the tools it needs to, deal with some of its counters, right? Things like, Chi-Yu, Incineroar and whatnot. But I think the Psy Spam Trick Room obviously didn't necessarily get it. But I think a lot of the mons I'm about to talk about, paired up with Whimsicott here, actually beat, a lot of those, Incineroar combos, for example, the Chi-Yus and whatnot. A big one obviously being, Terrakion here, you can just fire off Rock Slides, CCs, whatever. It doesn't really care. Even if you burn it, you can just get it to +6 attack anyway. So like it doesn't really care that much. But yeah, basically, Armarouge here, it's got weak, Terra Grass, weakness policy, weak armor, very, very good. Endure here is also fantastic, and then of course just protect. And again, I'll quickly touch on like Mousehold here, because again, Mousehold does very, very similar things to what Whimsicott does. It has the beat up here, right? It has the U-turn as well, which is obviously very, very clutch. Obviously it has protect, and then it just has like follow me for just general support. And again, Frank Guard's like super, super clutch in, some of these teams as well. But I think its biggest issue really is like, obviously it has this, 111 speed tier here. But the main thing it really has going against it is just the fact that, it doesn't have Prankster. It's fast, but it's just not fast enough. There are some things that are in that same speed range. But end of the day, it's Tailwind. Tailwind's like the real, the real selling point for this thing, in my opinion. Also, having things like Prankster Taunt obviously is like super, super clutch. As well, like things like, Encore. It also has like, if you need it, Moonblast. It's like Whimsicott just has more options. I did think, I'd kind of add that in there. But anyway, moving on to the next one here is another, very common, I guess, Mousehold partner, and that's Annihilape. Again, the reason I think Annihilape is like super, super good in like a team like this is because, again, this one absolutely just eats, absolutely eats Incineroar alive, right? So if you lead something like, say, beat up, and then you can just go like Covet Cloak here, right? You go like Covet Cloak, you've got beat up. If they lead their Incineroar, you can't fake out either mon. This guy's going to get his +1. He's going to get his maxed out Rage Fist as well if he wants it. And then 2, you can kind of EV to a stage where like, a +1 Drain Punch will like almost always just kill Incins. Like I'm actually pretty sure that like the 36 Adamant at +1 has like a very good chance of, like, I don't want to say very good chance, but I want to say it's like near 50% to just KO like a standard like max HP Incineroar, which I do think is obviously very, very clutch. Especially too, because if you do pair it up with something like, say, Moonblast, for example, Moonblast into Drain Punch should have picked up like any version of Incineroar too, which I do think is obviously super clutch. And Defiant, again, is fantastic there. And this is kind of what I was talking about, right? Where I don't think like Indeedee plus Annihilape just doesn't seem good by itself, but when you add something like Whimsicott in there, it's fantastic. And again, like these mons like the Chi-Yus that, kind of deal pretty well with, Armarouge, don't really want to deal with Annihilape, right? Because if they don't Terra, they get one shot by a Drain Punch. If they do Terra and go Ghost, they just get one shot by Rage Fist, which obviously is like super, super clutch. And again, I guess I'll quickly add, just for anyone who I guess doesn't understand why Whimsicott plus Annihilape is really good, is because Rage Fist, every time you hit, your it basically gets +50 to its stack, right? So if you hit him 4 times, all of a sudden that's 250 base power Rage Fist, coming off a pretty decent attack stat, right? 250 base power is absurd. It's basically, an explosion, right? If you think about it like that. So it's really, really good. And then again, if you pair this up, you say you've got the Indeedee on the team, or, you've got Mousehold on the team as well. Things like Bulk Up can be like super clutch and then just like protect, yeah. So yeah, Annihilape also just functions incredibly well on this team. And again, it kind of just gives you like this nice, like, core where, how do you beat the Terrakion? Well, you kind of want to intimidate it on like turn 1, but then like if you like go for the Intimidate, but they lead Annihilape, all of a sudden you've got this like +1 ape that's like super bulky on the board, and they can just start sweeping through with things like Rage Fist. And Annihilape's another one that kind of really likes having the, the speed control from Whimsicott, because the main thing with ape is it kind of like always wants to, invest like a lot in bulk, right? Like for example, if you like, I'd say like a standard ape would be something like this, right? I think you go like something like that. Then it was like 72. Yeah, I think it's like 72, something like that, right? So like you 118, you're decently quick, but you don't really outspeed many things. But if you've got Tailwind, all of a sudden you start outspeeding a lot of things, right? Like, because this is not a bad speed tier to be in, right? It's pretty decent. And yeah, so you pair that up with things like Leftovers, and all of a sudden, this one can really just start sweeping through. And yeah, that is like really, really cool. But I guess the last mon, and this is again why I kind of think this strategy is like really, really sick. And that's the new one, and that's Archaludon. basically the reason I guess, you know, Archaludon works so well with Whimsicott or even, you know, Mousehold is because one, you know, again, beat up, you know, you hit the Archaludon 4 times, you have stamina, basically giving yourself +4 to your defensive stat. You're also taking like 0 damage from it because one, Whimsicott doesn't hit hard at all. Actually, technically, like it comes from your allies, but again, it's a very weak move and you're a mon that has like stupidly high defensive stats. And that also pairs up incredibly well with things like body press. And this is kind of, again, where you just go back to that whole Incineroar thing, right? You know, Incineroar beats Psyspan. Incineroar doesn't beat Archaludon. Sure, you can fake it out, but if Whimsicott just gets the beat up off, like you've got to pray you've got some big special attackers in the back. Because again, you get this thing to +4, all of a sudden, you know, you're talking about 600 defense, and that's with 0 investment, right? And this is a mon that absolutely just loves going like that. You probably put 2 points in there, you know, just to, you know, kind of get your Tailwind speed up, right? Because that would allow you to outspeed anything under Tailwind, as long as they're not Scarf or Booster Energy or Regieleki. And then you can kind of just like invest into, you know, your other stats here, right? You probably want to hit like some modest benchmark, right? Whether that be like maybe 170 modest. And then kind of just like, you know, pump into the rest. Because I like even numbers, I just get like 12 there, go something like that, right? And then you slap an Assault Vest on this thing, and then all of a sudden, like this mon's got like a lot of Spadef, you know, a lot of HP. And then again, just if you get +2 on this mon, it starts like absolutely like dealing a lot of damage. And then you also just go with things like Draco Meteor, obviously, Flash Cannon. And one other cool thing I think you can do as well, if you like really want it, depending on the team, you could actually go for a Quiet Nature. Basically giving yourself like max attack here, or like, you know, just normal attack. And then your heavy slams actually do, you know, deal a lot more damage to Flutter Mane than your flash cannons. As a matter of fact, I do think heavy slam off this one does one-shot it. I haven't actually done the calc myself, so I could be wrong on that. But I have seen some people say heavy slam on this one does pick up. And then yeah, like I think this just forms like a really cool core, right? You drop Mousehold off there, and again, like I'm not necessarily saying like play this 6 here together, but these 6 mons in particular have incredibly good synergy, right? And again, like I kind of want to just touch on it, like I guess just all of it in general. So you got things like Rocky Helmet, you know, you can run as well. I think a really good option is like Psychic Seed. Safety Goggles is also really nice. It really just depends on the team and like I guess what other mons you kind of put around it. But basically this one's got like Follow Me, it's got Helping Hand. Follow Me, Helping Hand. I'm missing something. Obviously you want one offensive move. You don't want Trick Room. I feel like I said something else earlier. I guess like Trick Room probably isn't even bad, right? If you are pairing it up with things like Archaludon and whatnot, who aren't, you know, super quick. But then of course, you know, think something just like Psychic and whatnot, right? Just a very standard Indeedee set. I feel like I'm missing like something. I guess like maybe just go like Protect there or something, yeah. Yeah, so you have like some like standard Indeedee like this, pairs incredibly well with the Armarouge, and then again you go for things like, you know, you turn off the Armarouge as like Terra Grass, you know, you give it the weakness policy, all of a sudden, you know, your Armarouge is sitting at like 350 special attack, and then you've just got like the Indeedee in to, you know, just get off an Expanding Force. As well, you can go for things like Endure plus U-Turn, basically making sure you live, and then you just get into the Indeedee for free, go for things like Helping Hand, right? Again, if they've got counters, you know, things like, you know, Incineroar and whatnot, that deal like really well with Armarouge, you've got answers like Annihilape, you know, Terrakion's pretty good, even Archaludon is like really good into it. So, you know, I just think this is like a really cool core. And again, like I know I said it before, I'm not saying play these 6 mons together, but you could definitely take like Whimsicott and then like, you know, potentially like, you know, Terrakion Annihilape or Terrakion Archaludon, and then pair it, you know, with maybe your own Incineroar and stuff like that, and make just like a really sick core. But yeah, I think like beat up Whimsicott is just super freaking good right now, man. Like there's just so much you can do. Like, now, look, let me just like fill out some of these things, yeah, if anyone actually wants to test it. I think Life Orb's really good. Terra Grass doesn't seem too bad. Terra Water's also not too bad. Terra Fairy as well, I think could be, you know, honestly pretty solid. Really, I think you kind of just want a Terra that kind of lets you live. Yeah, but yeah, Life Orb's solid. I think Clear Amulet as well is like also pretty decent. But I think you kind of want the extra damage from Life Orb, just because there are situations where you can't necessarily go for the beat up turn 1, right? Like, you know, we're talking about situations before where like maybe you've got a Tailwind turn 1, and then you just go like Tailwind Rock Slide or Tailwind, you know, Close Combat. Again, if it's like a Flutter Mane, you really want to kill it, you go Tailwind plus, you know, like Iron Head as well, yeah. So a lot of, you know, options like that. For this guy, yeah, that's honestly just pretty much exactly what you're gonna do. Maybe just like drop down to like that or something, just like split your defenses. But yeah, there's like always options like that as well. Annihilape, Terra Fire and Terra Water are probably just the 2 best on this one. I've already got the EV spreads there. Leftovers is just really good. As well, I guess anyone who doesn't know why it's 180 HP, that's just optimal Leftovers recovery. So that's why you go to 180 rather than maxing it up more, just, you know, efficiency on that. Duraludon, again, something like that's honestly probably fine if you want to go quiet. If you're going modest, obviously I'd run a little bit more speed, just because, you know, you kind of want to get it up there, right? At least get to, you know, that 107. And then yeah, just probably something like that. Yeah, nothing too crazy there. And then Indeedee, Indeedee's a very simple spread, thankfully. You just go like max. and then just like split here. It's very nice. But yeah, I guess they're the ones there, guys. Very, very simple stuff, you know. Actually, Terra as well. I think Terra Fairy's like the go-to. You can also slap Dazzling Gleam on this if you like really wanted. But yeah, that's the team there, guys. I mean, that's just the mons in general. Terra Few. I think Terra Fairy is probably the best one, right? Because it gets rid of your fighting weakness, which I do think in this metagame is pretty good. But yeah, that's basically the team, guys. Oh yeah, this guy too. Probably just going like Terra Ghost, right? Like Terra Ghost. Oh, honestly, I would also say Focus Sash is probably just like the best play on this one. You just go like Focus Sash and then just like, I don't know, like Max. Something like that. I don't know, you probably don't even have to go max here. If you're going Covet Cloak, you definitely would go more into bulk. But if you're just going Sash, you may as well just go like max and just have like Moonblast on it, in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, that's the team, guys. Let me know what you think of it down below. And yeah, I'll catch you to the next one. Peace.